morning, everyone. You know, often the biggest question in AI is not so much can we do something, because if we can't today, give it another 6 months. The biggest question is rather, do we dare to do something? Do we dare to take the risk of working with machines that give us nonsensical answers, machines that randomly go off on one, or sometimes confabulate and invent potentially litigious info? AI is not really ready for prime time. And that's about to change, and it's about to change very quickly. Because we have learned that we can scaffold these AI systems with little tiny programs that help to steer their thinking to be much more logical and much more deterministic. We can apply a little bit of extra logic, and suddenly these same models are able to think in a coherent, consistent manner that is reliable. And in fact, we can use that ability to think logically to help these models to be much more agentic. That is, for these models to make plans, having understood a situation, and to put those plans into action. These agentic models are the next wave of AI beyond generative. They are here today, but they haven't yet reached the public consciousness. It's bubbling under the surface, and we haven't yet had our Sputnik moment as we had with ChatGPT. But that's coming very soon. These agentic models are able to sit and think alongside us on a problem. Here, a player is playing Minecraft, and the system is watching what they're doing, whispering in their ear with a little bit of advice, what to do next, how best to proceed, giving little hints and strategies for the player. These kinds of strategies are going to come to all kinds of different workflows. People working in an office are going to get hints about how to improve things. People working on a sales floor are going to get a little Cyrano de Bergerac whisper in their ear to close the deal. These systems are able to act like a concierge. They can solve all kinds of different problems, whether it's planning an event, or finding the perfect gift, or researching a complex problem, doing a very systematic literature review, and then aggregating and summarizing all of that important info. And this means that machines aren't just proofreading a document or generating an image. They are able to act much more like an individual employee. In fact, online today already, there are more bots of various kinds on the internet. And very soon, we're going to have more agents out there in the world doing things for us than the people actually commanding them. What's more is that these agents are actually able to form ensembles, to create a swarm of different agents which work together to solve a problem. Here we have different departments, an engineering department, a quality assurance department, a marketing department, all of them teams of agents operating together and having tasks delegated between them. And so these can create an end-to-end product, whether it's a movie script or a video game, by passing the parcel between them. So this is really the dawn of not just AI assistants, but actually AI corporations. How are we going to make sense of this? Especially in a world where these agents are not just working on a problem for a few seconds, but they're able to chew on a problem for multiple minutes, or maybe even hours or days. And we have mathematically proven that a transformer model, given a sufficiently long enough time, is able to solve any problem. How many of you have played with the recent O1 preview model from ChatGPT? Yeah, quite a few. This is a taste of what is coming. Much more logical, deterministic, and hard-thinking machines. How do we prepare our learners for a world where their boss may be a bot, where information is cheap, where knowing things is not so much useful because knowledge is on command at any time? These are the questions that all of us must be chewing on today and into the future. Unfortunately, our educational system has often been modeled on the old Industrial Revolution. You know, individual replacement parts coming together, whether they're physical components or whether they're human beings. And often our educational system has, of course, reflected the same ideal. We need to be teaching people not to simply follow instructions like a cook, but to be able to create something original like a chef. To be able to curate an experience, not just follow a list of instructions. And this is the key differential between a high-value employee and a low-value one. We're going to need to move beyond the 3 R's. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are, of course, going to be essential. But really, the key skills going forward are going to be the 3 C's. The ability to solve complex problems, to think in a critical and creative manner, to be able to understand content and curate it, improve it, select it, and to think with others, collaborating with other humans, other machines, in an empathic manner. This is what's going to win. Beyond this, it's about creating a whole person. It's about developing the character of the learner, not just their skills. And the most important of all, perhaps, is going to be grit. The ability to persist in a world which changes at bewildering paces, where we decide to enter a career and perhaps 5 or 10 years later that whole career has gone. That whole industry might have been transformed. To adapt to that requires constant change and constant renewal. That's something that children are good at. We know that children learn quickly. One of the reasons why they learn quickly is because they don't know how bad they are as a novice, right? The child makes a horrible noise from the violin, but she doesn't care because she doesn't know any better. She can't compare herself to some virtuoso. Because she doesn't know any better, she keeps practicing. She doesn't lose heart. And pretty soon, she's not so bad. But as adults, we are painfully aware of how our pitiful novice attempts are so woeful in comparison to others. And so we tend to lose heart. And that's why one of the greatest superpowers of our age is being comfortable with making mistakes. As we heard, innovation is sometimes a painful and embarrassing experience, but that's part of the journey, right? So long as we learn from our mistakes, we notice them, we improve, we go forward doing that less often, we make other mistakes instead, we can continually renew ourselves and have the courage to always be learning and always be evergreen beginners. These new agentic AI systems give us powerful new ways of learning. They can construct for us a customized personal lesson or lesson plan or even a curriculum, creating on demand a perfect lesson for us to learn a specific problem. These systems can then sit and think alongside us and talk through a math problem to help that learner to recognize where problems lie and to be able to create their own personalized analogy that makes sense, that helps them to understand that issue. Even in the world of training, this iPad on a stick is guiding a technician about what to do next, how to repair this device in a way that doesn't risk losing screws or causing problems. Step-by-step, online guided instructions. And if an issue comes up, that issue can be adjusted for and dealt with. In the world of virtual reality, we're able to create experiences for people to learn procedural skills. No manual can teach you how to ride a bicycle, right? But learning in a virtual environment can give us similar kinds of procedural skills. And what's more is that learning in a virtual manner can shorten a dynamic learning loop. If you want to shoot a basketball, you have to take your position, take a shot, watch how it went, collect the ball, return to your position, and take another shot. But if you can keep spawning basketballs in your hand over and over, then you can keep taking that same shot, right? And that means that the time it takes to learn that new skill is dramatically compressed. This extends into the world of training people to handle stressful job interviews when they get asked those difficult questions. Instead of a 10-minute role play, they can do this all day long if they need, until they start to feel comfortable. In social situations, these little co-pilots can observe us as we have a conversation with somebody. We walk up, we say hello, we strike up a conversation, all in a safe sandbox where, there's nothing to go wrong. It doesn't matter if we put our foot in it. And this is so important, particularly for people who may have social anxiety or maybe having trouble relating with others, especially when it comes to embodied systems, where these intelligences can actually interact with us in physical space, not just virtual ones. This is a big deal in a world where we're seeing an apparent dramatic rise in autistic spectrum conditions, where people may have greater challenges in interacting with others. In these safe spaces, people are able to learn in a remarkable new way that is so much safer and so much more welcoming. Speaking of welcoming, we can, of course, use AI techniques to create a more inclusive learning environment. Persons with sight conditions are now able to understand what is in front of them, to know whether that cheese is still in date or not. Persons with different abilities are now able to communicate in new ways, able to translate sign language into regular text or speech, able to listen and or lip read and create an online description of what is going on in conversations around them. And even for people who have difficulty enunciating, maybe they have a speech condition or a particularly strong dialect, AI can help to rework their speech in a way that others are better able to understand. But we should be careful, because sometimes we can go a little bit too far. A few years ago, over in China, the parents of students demanded that the school adopt these willpower refining technologies. Technologies that can scan a student's mind and observe whether they are concentrating or not. And it did cause a bit of a furore, and the program was suspended eventually. But it should be remembered that it was the parents' own volition to have these systems installed to try to improve the children's grades. AI can get literally under our skin. It's able to amplify tiny movements in the blood flow of our skin things that we cannot see with our naked eyes, but that these systems can amplify like a microscope for time, understanding the blood flow through the face, breathing rhythms, heart rhythms, hormonal rhythms, all of it together, creating a very rich picture of who that person is, their personality, their intelligence, their health status, whether they might be pregnant or not. All of these things can be read simply by a CCTV camera. And all of us are taking personal info, like selfies. We're taking that stuff all the time and putting it out on social media. We don't understand that machines are able to see a lot more than we can, or that we imagine that they're able to do. The eyes are not just the window to the soul, but they're able, through machine vision techniques, to show us what that person is looking at. And with a little bit more machine learning magic, we can show also the room or the space, the ambient environment in which that selfie was taken as well. There's so much more out there than we ever realized. We should be careful and we should be mindful, because technology can take us in directions we didn't expect to go. Technology presents new capabilities, which we may embrace, but which inexorably, before long, before we even realize it, can change the entire values of a society. That may be a good thing. It may be a thing with trade-offs, but it's definitely something that we should remember. It's so important that we use these very powerful technologies in a responsible manner, that we embed transparency into these systems so that we understand what they're doing, in what way, and to whose benefit. This can help us to reduce and mitigate potential biases in there, to develop stronger accountability so that when things go wrong, we know it's gone wrong and how to put it right in future, and to protect not just the privacy of people, but their dignity as well, in a world which is becoming incredibly invasive. I really recommend that you check out the AI Incident Database. It's got a whole series of different examples of AI doing strange things in ways that people didn't expect. And there's going to be a lot more of these incidents very soon, because agentic AI gives us the ability to solve problems, including solving for a cyber attack. We're now starting to get AI systems that are able to attack other AI systems and potentially even to take them over. For example, an AI system that's monitoring somebody's inbox can read an email, and suddenly that system is like a Manchurian candidate. It's been compromised, and its behavior may change on a whim, depending on certain stimuli given to it. This is especially important in a world where we're starting to see ransomware going after schools, colleges, universities, and shaking them down for all kinds of money. There is hope. There's reason to be cheerful. The EU AI Act and other legislation around the world will help, is helping, is making a difference. I'm part of the group trying to take these principles and put them into action through a more directly usable rubric. But between now and the future, I'd like to offer something to you all. If you go to nellwatson.com/agentic, a team that I've been working with this whole year has been mapping out the space of agentic AI to look at the elements which are driving safety in this domain and the elements which are inhibiting it. This is your crib sheet to understand agentic AI and how to use it in a more safe and responsible manner. I hope that it can help you to embrace these technologies and to make the most of them. My final word is to say that take heart for the future. Because I liken it a lot to jet air travel in the 1950s and 60s, which was an extremely glamorous pursuit, but also, unfortunately, a very tragic one often. Lots of airplanes were lost for reasons that now we would think are pretty silly. But that's because things were new and we didn't realize all the ways that things can go wrong. But we adapted. We developed cockpit voice recorders and instrument recorders and understood quickly how things went wrong and how to put that right in future. And that's the journey that we're taking with AI. We may have a bit of a rocky road for a couple of years, but pretty soon we'll start to figure this stuff out. And then, hopefully, all of us will be able to enjoy the fruits of AI in a way that leads us towards a brighter future. Thank you so much.
Nell, thank you again for a very insightful, very different talk. Really just lots of things to think about. We have some time. I think it would be worth having a conversation. Anybody? I have a roving mic if anyone would like to ask a question of Nell. Going to come down and eyeball somebody.
Oh, what's
yeah,
over there? You're absolutely right.
Did everyone get that? I'm just...
So the question, as I understood it, was about the sustainability angle and the energy usage of these data centers which power AI systems, which is indeed formidable. Over in the States, they've reopened a 3 Mile Island, which had a sort of nuclear scare a while back, and they shut it down, and now they're going to reopen it again. Simply to power a data center. It's not going to do anything else. It's not going to provide power for the local city. It's just for one major data center. So these systems are sucking up enormous amounts of energy. And that is problematic, in a sense. But we should also be mindful that if these systems are able to solve problems, then they're probably going to avoid all kinds of waste in other areas as well, right? Just the same way that using an iPad to, read books or a magazine or something like that, saving a lot of paper and a lot of transportation and things like that. So there will be trade-offs. These things are using enormous energy, but they're also saving in other ways as well. And I'd also like to point out a statistic that you might not be aware of. For those of you that have been playing around with O1, the latest, more agentic, deterministic, long-thinking model, every time that you ask it a hard question that takes a minute or two, it's costing OpenAI about 75 cents on average, right? So not a huge expense, but it adds up, right? Especially if you're only paying 20 or 30 bucks a month. So these systems do potentially use a lot more cost than the sort of fractions of a penny that a standard GPT-4 lookup might cost. But of course, the value of that is commensurately much, much higher because of their capability and the reliability that comes with it.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, at the back there. Just, I think there's a mic going to you there.
Thank you very much. So I have a question regarding the basketball incident, right? So say, for example, the kid throwing the ball, he can repeat it multiple times. I love the idea of that. I hate going to get the ball, especially with 2 kids. You're getting it all the time. My question is we talked about the character piece there being grit is one of the key differentiators for character going forward as well. Do we not lose some of that grit in terms of going off, getting that ball, picking it up, coming back, throwing it again? And then just in terms of, I'm not necessarily sure what the question is, but it's a more question of like longer term. Do we see, again, the social scenarios of people learning more online about how to interact with people? do we see a wider context then of perhaps less investment into infrastructure because we can divert more and more of these, like say, for example, physical basketball courts into digital? It's more of a broad kind of comment, if you could, on those pieces as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree that sometimes the most important lessons that we really take to heart are sometimes the most painful ones, right? And perhaps in a world where machines don't allow us to fail because they're always sort of nannying us or saying, hey, you're going to screw up here, or, are you sure you want to send that text to your ex at 2 a.m. after half a bottle of Jameson? Perhaps that might interrupt some of the grit that comes from having really put our foot in it and having to painfully walk that off. Maybe learners in the future may be less resilient. Maybe they might be a little bit more coddled to some degree by these AI systems. And that's something that we should be mindful of. I agree. There's also a major issue coming soon. I didn't really have time to talk about it, but we are about to see a major societal problem with AI addiction. People being addicted to their interactions with machines. Quite soon, as in the next couple of years, people are going to have AirPods that have a camera on it. And those AI-enabled AirPods are going to be constantly commenting on what's going on in our world, whispering things to us. And some of those are going to be very insightful, and sometimes very funny. And so these things are going to act like a third hemisphere for our brain, in a sense. And we're going to not want to live without them. We're going to bond with them very strongly. And that bonding process could potentially be unhealthy, right? It might be a sort of a parasocial relationship with this AI system that feels very important to people, but in a way that might sublimate some of their drives for connection in ways that aren't necessarily healthy. And that's something that we as a society are going to be wrestling with in the years to come. And so that's another thing to chew on when it comes to our interactions with these machines.
Great. Well, I think we'll leave it there. You'll be around, Nell, I hope. Thank you very much. And once again, a huge thank you for,
Thank you.
as I say, an insightful presentation.